This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. So there's an interesting online book that I saw, a freebie, and I'll tell you who compiled this at the end of the podcast, and you can go find a copy of it yourself. And but before I read some of the passages, the chapters from this, I want to offer a pearl of wisdom. There was a book that I read a few years ago by Brenda Yulin called If You Want to Write. And it was a book about writing and how to write and how to think about writing. And if you read that book, you could remove the word writing and insert anything. So you could remove the word writing and insert trend following. You could insert basket weaving. You could insert running. It doesn't make a difference. That's the way the book was written. That's what this podcast is all about, that I'm about to do, this episode. What I'm talking about is relevant to trend following trading. It's relevant to being an entrepreneur. It's relevant to having a good life. It's relevant to having friends. It's relevant to having a good family. It's just relevant. And for those of you out there that maybe listen to my stuff and are still kind of like quant jocks, and you don't think the emotion of it all, the psychology of it all is as important or even more so important than the numbers, I will pass along a quickie about when I first met Ed Seykota, who is one of the great quant traders of all time. You can't sit down with Ed Seykota and just start talking math, start talking systems. He doesn't care because he knows deep down that it's the self, it's the internal, it's the ego, it's the psychology, it's the emotions. It's all these pieces wrapped together. That's the foundation. So what I'm going to read today is, like I said, this is from a free ebook, which I recommend. It's very easy read. But I'm going to read some passages about particular subjects, and these are all really relevant. So the first one is called fascination. Why exactly do humans smile? This question puzzled anthropologists for hundreds of years. The smile is instinctive, one of 1,000 fascination cues we use to persuade others to connect with us. Yet from an evolutionary perspective, the smile makes no sense. In the animal kingdom, retracting the mouth corners and baring teeth is a sign of aggression. Yet in humans, this same gesture signals openness. So why are humans different? The answer? Bigger animals have bigger mouths and therefore lower vocal vibrations, which conveys dominance. Smaller animals have smaller mouth cavities, and their higher voices communicate friendliness or submission. It's why a Rottweiler's growl is more threatening than a Pomeranian's. When humans smile, we pull back our cheek flesh against our teeth, which makes our mouth cavity smaller and raises the pitch of our voice. Presto! We sound friendlier, essentially turning ourselves from a big animal into a smaller one. Smiling, anthropologists realized, began as a way to sound less threatening, and then it evolved into a way to look more approachable. The next time you become captivated by a person or a brand or an idea, without even realizing it, you're most likely under the influence of the fascination triggers. Now, the lady that wrote that, I guess the way this was compiled, all these sections I'm going to read are about a particular topic. Trend following fascination, that applies to me. But the lady that wrote this also wrote a book called Fascination, which I highly recommend. And I have to interject a fun story about the book Fascination. It was given to me by one of my assistants, who is a very nice, very, very nice woman. And I know she would probably be mortified if I said that, but she's very innocent, so to speak. She's a good person. She's a good girl. She's not, she's a good girl. And so her and her friend decided to give me this book, Fascination. And I think it came recommended through another author or something like that. And so I'm reading this book, and the very first chapter is about strip joints. And remember, the book was called Fascination. And what they learned in this book was the fascination element was that women in, professional dancers, girls that take their tops off, make more money when it's that time of the month. True. That was fascinating. And that the pheromones, the biological, all of that exists out there. Now, you might say, Mike, what the heck does that have to do with anything? It's the point of fascination. Don't you find it fascinating if we quickly switch to the trend following world? That there's a strategy that can make money when everybody else is losing? That you can make money when the crazy, unexpected event happens? That's fascinating. It's never talked about. Not in public, really, except by me. I mean, some of the big trend followers. It's fascinating. Subject number 2. Subject number 2 is gumption. And let me read a little brief about gumption. Most of us settle in and settle for what we have. Rather than pursue, we accept. Our lives become unwittingly celebrations of passivity. We undervalue our work and perceive ourselves as wage slaves. And so we phone it in at the day gig. We consume compulsively, but not create. And we pine for better lives, but live vicariously through our televisions. These corners we paint ourselves into, it's no way to live. There's no adventure here, no passion, no hunger for change. Remember, that relentless optimism you once had, the goals you wished to achieve before settling in, they're still there. You need a nudge to find them, a little gumption. You can start that business. You can lose that weight. You can quit smoking and learn to garden and write that book and be a better parent and be all the things you want to be. The thing this world needs you to be. It requires courage and faith, both of which you can muster. It requires effort, but this effortless life isn't as satisfying as it seems, is it? Declare a war on passivity. Hush the inner voice that insists you're over the hill, past your prime, unworthy of attaining those dreams. Disbelief is now the enemy, as is the notion of settling. Get hungry, hyena hungry. Get fired up. Find your backbone and your wings. Flap them. It's the only way you'll be able to fly. Self-explanatory. Self-explanatory. I don't care, like I said, you want to be a trend-following trader, you want to be a writer, you want to be an author, you want to be an entrepreneur. Gumption. Number 1, you got to start. Third point, focus. Focus, most important. That's what Mr. Miyagi said. For Daniel's son, his attention was scattered. Thoughts of moving to Fresno consumed him, and his sensei was teaching a simple lesson in self-control. In business, too, we struggle to obtain focus. More is better, seems the implied message. Our instinct nudges us towards a scattershot approach because we fear missing an untried path. Like the Karate Kid, we need to practice our own self-control. Many mentors beyond Miyagi have advised us on the benefits of focus. Jim Collins tells us to be a hedgehog and find our singular purpose. Al Reese and Jack Trout have always said to position yourself to own one word. Chris Zook even quantifies the rewards of focus, showing that the top company in any industry captures 70% of profits. In seeing the pixels that make the picture, focus can become a form of inquiry. We notice things we missed. New connections appear. The questions change. Meanings change. When we focus, the answer is always something new. Be present, the Zen Buddhists say. That is what Mr. Miyagi was saying too. You can't be a great trader. You can't be an entrepreneur. You can't be almost anything unless you focus. I know. Just tell you when to enter. Okay, we'll get to that. Remember the wash on, wash off as we speak of Mr. Miyagi? Next point, leap. Leap. And this author says, I always start my fiction writing classes by telling my students this: show, don't tell. It is the classic rule of writing to use details to engage all the senses of the reader by showing. In this way, fiction is like faith. To believe in something is often to be unable to talk about satisfactorily, but you can show the manifestations of that belief in your life. This, I think, is also a good way at looking at our lives in general. Show, don't tell. To write fiction and to have faith is to take an imaginative leap. And because life is always full of doubts and fears, to act is to take that leap. So leap. I've got a guy who's been writing me for like 10 years, basically asking me questions about how to become a trend following trader. He wants to take some of my instruction. He wants to jump in, but he can't. So he essentially asks what I would call pre-purchase questions. And he's been doing this for 10 years. I really don't care whether or not he becomes a client or not. It's not going to affect my life. But he wrote me recently, and I had to look up my emails when the last time it was. And I just wrote back, I said, just jump. Just get off the sidelines. Jump. Do something. I don't think he ever will, but he should. The next point. Timeless. What would Buddha tweet? Here's the paradox. We've never had more communication tools at our disposal, and yet we have never been less effective at communicating. It's human nature to want the shiny new things. The amateur golfer thinks that with that new titanium driver, she'll be as good as Tiger Woods. And we believe that social marketing will magically transform our mediocre messages into the Word of God. Like all good Buddhists, I believe that when things become chaotic and complicated, it becomes ever more urgent to cut through the noise, simplify, and hone in on what really matters. Hey, by the way, in trend following, what really matters is the price of the market right now. Continuing. Here are 3 timeless principles of good cause-related communications that will be as important in 10 years as they are today. Heart, simplicity, and story. Number 1, heart. Engage your community from a place of passion and compassion. Facts matter less. Simplicity. If you can't tell your brand story to a 9-year-old, it's no good. Number 3, story, the root of it all. And that's been my struggle over the years. How do you explain this fantastic story of trend following? Because it really is, in some ways, trend following is almost like a conspiracy theory. Because nobody, the powers that be, the media powers that be, have no desire to let somebody push the trend following message. Because it instantly makes everything that takes place in the media, the propaganda machine, the Joseph Goebbels inspired machine, well, it becomes evident for what it is. And then they don't make the money. So I guess in that way, trend following is sort of a conspiracy theory. Kind of cool. I don't know if I've ever thought of it that way, but I'll take it. Next subject, confidence. Confidence is rocket fuel for your business life. Confident people have a come-this-way charisma that generates a following. When you possess total confidence, you are willing to take risks. When you have it, you propel yourself and your team forward into the future. Problem. Most people don't cultivate confidence. It just lands on them due to favorable conditions. I call this spot confidence. Good times make for confident people. Bad times crush them, along with their daring point of view. The secret to unbreakable confidence is a lifestyle of emotional, mental diet, and exercise. 2 big points when it comes to confidence. Number 1, feed your mind good stuff. Stop reading negative information, listening to negative people, or watching cable network news. You're loading up with fear. Replace that information with studies about the future or an improved you. You'll soon emerge as a solution provider instead of a Chicken Little. Number 2, exercise. I don't know what kind of accent is that? I don't know. I'm just making this up. Exercise your gratitude muscle. Gratefulness is a muscle, not a feeling. You need to work at it daily. Every morning, give thanks to 2 people that helped you yesterday and 1 person that will assist you today. This will focus your mind on what you have, and you'll soon realize you're not alone. Just great stuff. Next subject, passion. Some people ask, what if I haven't found my true passion? It's dangerous to think in terms of passion and purpose because they sound like such overwhelming ideas. If you think love needs to look like Romeo and Juliet, you'll overlook a great relationship that grows slowly. If you think you haven't found your passion yet, you're probably expecting it to be overwhelming. Instead, just notice what excites you and what scares you on a small moment-to-moment level. If you find yourself glued to Photoshop playing around for hours, dive in deeper. Maybe that's your new calling. If you keep thinking about putting on a conference or being a Hollywood screenwriter, and you find the idea terrifies but intrigues you, it's probably a worthy endeavor for you. You grow and thrive by doing what excites you and what scares you every day, not by trying to find your passion. And, I'm going on this trip, and I have to say, it's I can't really say it's a passion yet, but it intrigues me. I guess there's a little fear. It's exciting. And I won't be surprised when it's all over, that turns into passion. But that's the process. Oh, I know. You're sitting there. What does this have to do with trading, Mike? Okay, if you think that, maybe I'm the wrong guy for you. Next subject, 2 left. Poker. Business is a game. Everything I know about business, I learned from poker. Financials, strategy, education, and culture. The financials. The guy who wins the most hands is not the guy who makes the most money in the long run. The guy who never loses a hand is not the guy who makes the most money in the long run. Go for positive expected value, not what's least risky. You will win or lose individual hands, but it's what happens in the long term that matters. Strategy. Learn to adapt. Adjust your style of play as the dynamics of the game change. The players with the most stamina and focus usually win. Hope is not a good plan. Stick to your principles. Education. Never stop learning. Read books. Learn from others who have done it before. Learn by doing. Theory is nice, but nothing replaces actual experience. Just because you win a hand doesn't mean you're good and you don't have any more learning to do. You might have just gotten lucky. Culture. To become really good, you need to live it, breathe it, and sleep it. Be nice and make friends. It's a small community. Have fun. The game is a lot more enjoyable when you're trying to do more than just make money. Well, boy, I tell you what, more than just make money. If you approach trading just from the idea of only trying to make money, you are probably not going to make it. Oh, I know. We need to talk about risk management, and we need to talk about correlations, and we need to talk about expectation, and we need to talk about drawdowns, and we need to talk about reducing size during drawdowns, and we need to talk about average true range. I talk about those things. But this podcast is about the 6 inches between your ears. The mental side of the game. That's my goal today. This holiday goal, as I am in cold Virginia, away from sunny parts unknown in Western United States, that's the goal. To stimulate the psychology, to stimulate the brainwaves in there, to make something inside your cranium start to fire on all cylinders, so to speak. To become curious. So my last one is really the nearest and dearest to my heart right now, because I am boarding a spaceship of some sort in early February to head to parts unknown for actually, I don't know if I've said this in my podcast. It's not just an Asian adventure. I'm actually going around the world entirely, circumnavigating, so to speak. And I'll eventually post all the cities that I'm going to be at, but I'm going to be in Europe as well. I think I'm going to be in the Middle East as well. So a lot of different places. Anyways, this last subject area is adventure. And this is where we all need to be, really. This is where success lies, is at adventure. And so this author that wrote this piece on adventure says, I've been thinking about how big our world is and how small-minded we've become, how quick we are to judge, and how slow to understand. Technology places the resources of the world at our fingertips, yet we have trouble seeing past the ends of our nose. For every trend, there's a counter-trend worth considering. Resolve to leave the screens of your virtual world momentarily behind and indulge your senses with a real-world adventure. I agree. Yes, absolutely. St. Augustine said, the world is a book, and those who don't travel read only one page. My advice, and this, I've read this before, this is just great. My advice, adventure calls, blaze a new trail, cross a continent, dare to discover, Escape the routine. Find a fresh perspective. Go slow. Gaze absentmindedly and savor every moment. Have some fun. Invest now in future memories. Journeys are the midwives of thought. Keep a journal. Leave prejudice and narrow-mindedness behind. Make for the horizon and meet new people. Navigate the unknown. Observe and open your mind. Pursue a road less traveled. Quest for truth. Rely on yourself. Sail away from the safe harbor. Take a risk. Unleash your curiosity. Venture further. Why wait? Expect the unexpected. Say yes to adventure. Journey with zeal. Love it. Right? It's the holidays. It's not time just to count another year. It's time to plan an adventure. It's time. Whatever your adventure might be, whether it's travel, whether it's becoming a trend-following trader, something. My only purpose of this particular podcast episode was to make you think about the interior side of these issues. Your mind, your ego, the 6 inches between your ears. Because at the end of the day, regardless of whatever success you want to achieve, the issues that I've talked about in this podcast this is it. It's Life 101. If you can do this stuff, you're going to win. If you can't, well, as I've taken to fondly saying in the last couple months, it appears that Starbucks baristas and Walmart greeters have openings. So you got a choice, right? Now, of course, you've probably already guessed who out there that I'm a fan of would have compiled all those different authors that I've read from into one ebook. And of course, Seth Godin did. And you can find it at his website at sethgodin.com. And it's a good little quick read. It's just motivating. You know, if you can keep yourself in that mindset. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, Trend Following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.